This episode is brought to you by the Walker Law Firm out of Beaumont, Texas. With 3 generations of legal expertise, they're known for their honesty, integrity, and commitment to getting great results. Whether you need help with family law, criminal defense, or personal injury, I can promise you, these guys got your back. Visit www.walkerlawtx.com. All right. Hello and welcome to the Space Jammer Podcast. My name is Jared and I'm your host. Today we have a very special guest in the house. Actually, I'm in your house. We are in the Walker Law Firm here in Beaumont, Texas. And by the way, you have a beautiful spot here. I really love downtown Beaumont. I think that there's a pretty big opportunity for growth in the area as far as real estate and development and businesses and such. So I think you have an amazing spot. And I think it's only with years to come, it's only going to get better in the area. So first off, I'd like to say thanks for letting me come and bring the stuff into the area.
The privilege is mine. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing what you do, and
Sure.
I appreciate you letting me be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, first off, why don't you go ahead and tell people what it is that you do?
So we do. I try to explain this to clients that come in and just the mass public. We do a little bit of everything is the simple answer. I specialize primarily in civil litigation, personal injury, so anything involving car wrecks, 18-wheeler wrecks, commercial accidents, anything like that is my bread and butter, right? That's what I do primarily. I also do a lot of contract litigation. Breach of contract, I represent a lot of businesses on contracts and, various dealings. But my father, he was a criminal district judge here. He does our criminal side. He does real estate law. He does all kinds of stuff. So that's why I tell everybody is, yes, we both have, primary functions. Mine obviously is the civil side. His is the criminal. But we do handle pretty much everything in between. So
Wow.
Try to handle as much of it as we can.
Right. Man, it's crazy, once you start looking into it, what all is out there. Everybody has something that comes up that involves some type of legal intervention. And I'm sure you guys have seen it all. I mean, you're third generation law, right?
Well, I guess it would be technically third generation, but my family has been involved in, some legal aspect in Jefferson County for over 70 years.
Wow.
I mean, my great-grandmother was the first female county commissioner here.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, the thing is you see all walks of life. We've been a part of a lot of history here in Jefferson County. My grandfather was, he was a county judge here. He was the Chief Justice of the Ninth Court of Appeals. He was the judge of the 58th District. My dad was the 252nd District Court here.
Wow.
So, that's, I say all that because we've been here for a long time.
Sure.
And, to your point, people think that, lawyers are these greedy, hungry, or money-hungry, greedy bloodsuckers. And I don't, look, I'll be the first one to say there's a lot of them, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. But at the same time, there are people that strive to do it differently. We're here to help people, and that's what I tell folks, like you were mentioning, is, there's so many different facets that people don't realize that they actually may need a lawyer, right? And that's what I tell everybody. You don't need a lawyer till you need one. And my advice to everybody is that in your business transactions or even your personal stuff, if you're not sure, that's a pretty good indication that you need a lawyer, right?
Right.
Of course, that sounds like I'm jockeying for business. I'm not. It's always easier to be proactive and try to prevent something than it is to try to clean it up once it happens.
Right. Yeah. Because once it's too far gone, it's a mess.
That's right. It can get out of hand awfully quick.
Well, you guys, I've known your family for a very long time, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for you and your brother and your dad and your mom. I love your mom so much. But I guess, aside from that, not to go too far off topic here, but you are a recent father. Is that correct?
Man, that's right. And just let me say that respect goes both ways. Your mom always took care of me, and your family's been good to me, so that goes both ways. But yes, I am the proud father of a 4-month-old boy. Wow. And been getting adjusted to that. So, but we're so blessed, man. My wife was healthy during the birth. He's a beautiful baby boy. He came out, doctor said in 48 years, he had the most hair she's ever seen a baby born with. So, yeah, we're so blessed, man. And at the end of the day, I couldn't ask for more.
Right. Yeah, man, that's amazing. I haven't reproduced any myself, but maybe one day.
That you know of.
Yeah, that I know of. Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully I won't be reaching out for legal
Yeah,
purposes
there you go. There you go.
on that side. But your family has a history of being in law and things like that. So I guess I kind of want to dig into your inspiration. Like, I mean, what was your inspiration to become a lawyer?
Well, I think naturally, you follow or want to follow in your family's footsteps. And I think to some extent that's how it started is, I saw that's what my grandfather did, my uncles, my father, cousins. And I think that obviously develops or piques your interest. But for me, it wasn't just that, my family's a lawyer, or in law, so I have to go into law. It wasn't that. In fact, they discouraged me to do something else. But, what it was for me is I saw what my family was able to do with a law degree. There's so many different things that you can use it for. And ultimately, to accomplish what it is that I wanted to do was help people, right? And I know that sounds cliche. I know that every lawyer, everybody, just as a person, profession aside, because my profession doesn't it's not how I identify, or it's not what makes me. It's just what I do for a living. Right. But it is a tool that I can use to accomplish what it is I set out to do. And that is, I want to make a positive difference on people's life. I want to, I want to leave a situation better than I found it. And what I saw growing up through my dad, grandfather, aunts, uncles, whatever, was a law degree was a pretty good tool to have in your tool belt to be able to do that. Absolutely. And, at the same time, I enjoy what I do. I enjoyed learning the law and I enjoy going to court. I enjoy going to trial. So it was fulfilling to me all the way around.
Man, I've never, I'm familiar on like what a lawyer does and everything. And I've seen movies, going into the court, but I mean, is it anything like that? I mean, how would you describe that experience? I mean, because that's a big deal, being able to walk in and represent somebody in court and things like that.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, being able to advocate for somebody and you're defending or you're prosecuting or pursuing justice for what's quite possibly the biggest devastation, or it's most certainly their biggest headache, or, probably the biggest issue that they have in their life, to be able to go in there and they choose you. They choose our law firm. Then there's nothing that makes you more proud than to be the person in there fighting for that person. So, of course, the pride that, when somebody selects me, and that's what I tell people when they're hiring me, is not just another day. It's not just another business transaction. No, I'm proud that they're choosing me to advocate and fight for one of their biggest issues. To your next question, is it anything like it is on TV? I mean, maybe. I think, let's take Suits, for example, because everybody has seen Suits, right? Harvey Specter, the greatest closer. I enjoyed watching Suits because of the plot. It was very, very difficult for me on some of the things, watching the legal proceedings. My wife tells everybody, my mom says the same thing, that watching a legal show with my dad and I, or my brother, is miserable because we ruin it. The thing is, it's just because I have a hard time going, okay, that's not true. That's not how it actually works. Yes, the proceeding is pretty much the same, where you see them questioning the witness from the table or opening and closing arguments. Yes, that stuff's pretty much the same. But as far as like the legalese or the jargon, their objections, that stuff can get out of hand pretty quick. Yeah. But no, I mean, for the most part, it's depending on the case. It's not as dramatized. Now, don't get me wrong. There's times that it gets fiery. There's times there's tears flowing. All of that. That's real. But for the most part, there's a dramatic aspect to it for Netflix and Hollywood. And all that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could see that. And going back to the reason why you do it, to represent. It's kind of and representing people at almost some of their hardest times of life. That's kind of a commonality that I've noticed, because I've interviewed doctors and things like that, and one specifically. His reasoning for being an ER physician is, he was like, man, people walk in there and they're having the worst day of their life. Like nobody in there is smiling. Like they're not having a great day.
That's right.
And that kind of reminded me of, like, with your explanation. It's like, man, like you're representing people in a rough time. Like they want it to be over with. And so it's a respectable job.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't think I've ever had anybody walk in through my door to hire me with a big smile on their face, like, "Hey, man, I'm so excited to hire you," because lawyers have jobs because there's a problem. Most of the time, they're subject to some exceptions and transactional work and all of that. But for the most part, people are walking in through that door because they have a problem. They need somebody to fix it. So, similar to the ER situation, it's not necessarily a positive. Now, there's days where you've fulfilled what you told them you were going to do, or
Sure.
you made good on what you represented to them, and you had a positive outcome. That's a great day. But at the end of the day, I think for lawyers, doctors, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that you're dealing with a real person, a real problem, as opposed to a file number.
Right.
And that's something that, I hope 50 years from now that I never forget, because I strive every day to remember, even, because, let's just be real. There's days you don't want to deal with certain things. There's days you don't want to make phone calls, but that's what makes the difference. That's what makes the difference between somebody being a good advocate, a good doctor, a good interviewer, is willing to go that extra mile. And I think that's what separates, I know that's what separates the difference that people feel. That's how you get positive reviews and so forth, is that if you're willing to go in, that people will see that. And at the end of the day, whatever profession it is, lawyer, doctor, police officer, school teacher, if you're willing to put that effort in, people recognize it. Right,
absolutely. And another one of your points was, they don't like watching the law movies with y'all because y'all kind of point out. That's kind of how it was. I was watching Breaking Bad when I was taking like organic chemistry, and they're like doing all these mixtures with different colored solutions and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's not how it works. Like, that stuff's supposed to be clear.
But it looks great. It looks
crazy.
Yeah, it looks good.
So yeah, it's man, it's crazy. And what a time to be in law. It's there's a lot of crazy things happening, and we'll get to that later. But over the course of time, we've seen even just me, not being having a career in law or anything. I've seen things change. So, in your perspective, how has the law changed, and how has law in general changed since when you first became interested?
Man, I think the obvious answer is technology. I don't think there's any denying that. That's always been, the use of technology with law enforcement, the use of technology on private citizens. That's always been a hot button issue. But let's AI.
Right.
How's that gonna play into the law? How's that gonna play into law enforcement? How's that gonna play into interviews of potential criminal targets? There's just so many problems with that poses that as the technology's developed, and it's a wonderful thing. We need to keep developing technology, because just like this podcast wouldn't be able to happen without the development of technology, right?
Right.
But there's also scary things with that, right? Do you want all this super fancy technology used against? You want Big Brother using that against us every day unchecked? No. And I think that's obviously at the forefront of the law. And you take just in its simplest form, look how technology is used in politics and all of that to create a movement. That affects the law.
Right.
That affects people's ideals. That affects people's opinions, and all of that. It's a direct result of what you believe and what you think is how you're going to vote. What laws come into effect? What they propose.
Right.
So technology is obviously it's at the forefront of the law, and it's changing it and shaping it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess, I actually was going to talk about that a little bit, but, you were talking about, look at what technology's, doing for, as a front face for the community. I know right now we're kind of having an ongoing thing with like US versus Google, where, are you familiar with that case?
Man, I'm familiar with it. I don't know enough to really. Everything I would say would just be conjecture.
Right.
Wouldn't necessarily be factual. So.
Yeah, conjecture's fine.
Yeah.
But I believe that they're accusing Google of promoting their pushing, I guess, like what pops up on the very top of the search engines and
results,
things, advertisements and things like that. But depending on how that case goes, that could affect, how Apple does business, Facebook, Twitter.
You're talking about billion-dollar conglomerates too.
Right.
So, look, I think we'd all be naive to say that Facebook and Google, all of these major Apple, they use algorithms. It's just
sure,
so the lawsuit is one thing, but it all goes to the greater point, and that is technology, social media, all of that is geared to help you, to steer you a certain way.
Right.
It's used. How many times have you talked about something, or you looked at something, and then it pops up on your phone?
Exactly.
That is, and you're like, oh, is somebody listening to me? Yes. The answer is yes, they are. because it records your data. And the thing is that that's not a coincidence. And it's the same thing with these search engines. It's all funneled to get you to think a certain way. And I think that's probably more targeted in what scares more people. And I think that's kind of the basis of the lawsuit is, look, it's Google. It's their deal. They get to do whatever they want. If they want certain things to pop up. Now, can it be at the detriment of others? I think that's a good question. Other businesses, things like that. But really, I mean, it's not a shock. That's why everybody talks about that. And I'm like, look at the algorithms they use, right? I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Right. And they're coming, automatically on the iPhones. It automatically with Google and everything. And you type in Google, how to change the air filter. What pops up? YouTube, a YouTube video. And why is that? Who owns YouTube? Google. So it's like, it's not random. It's not popping up because it's the most interested, the most beneficial video on the web. But yeah, it's like I said, it's an odd time, man.
It's a strange time to be a part of, and it's fun, it's fascinating. Can it be problematic at times? Of course, I think we've all seen the problems that come from it. But again, it's not a coincidence that a YouTube video is it the best video? No, but that kind of hits the nail on the head. As a society, we're not necessarily worried about what is the best source of information.
Right.
We've kind of gotten away from credible information. We've kind of gotten away from credible sources and verifying information. Now it's just information. Whether it's misinformation or good information, we don't really care. We just want the bumper sticker headline so we can talk about it on Facebook.
Right, and that's the big one. If people read one sentence and they'll take that sentence
and
gospel,
run, man.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the gospel.
And so, and I think that's kind of what we were talking about earlier while we were setting up is like, man, nobody actually reads these days. It's like they want to just skim and scan and go with the take home message.
Sure.
And who's pushing these messages? Who knows?
Because we
so
don't look.
Right.
Speaking of, I guess it ties in, and not to cut you off, but it ties into this point is, we've spent a little bit of time talking about my background and my profession. As a lawyer, the fine print. Nobody checks the fine print anymore. And what I'm talking about is what happened to the days of wanting to form your own opinion and not be told what your opinion is.
Right,
and I'm not saying that applies to everybody because look, there's a lot of people that still do their own research and know the issues and all of that. But for the most part, Facebook, ladies and gentlemen, is not a credible source or should be used to defend your point because 99% of it is inaccurate. But it's just flooded with, for example, I'm going to use a hot button issue. Donald Trump did this. Kamala Harris did this, right? And you just, next thing you know is you're texting your friends. Did you see what they did? That's how that stuff spreads, but that's what they want.
Like wildfire, too.
Dude, you can't put it out. But, again, is at the end of the day, what it goes back to is kind of what you were saying as a society is let's stop the decline. Let's read books again. Let's develop our own ideas and thoughts and have intelligent discussions. And I'm not saying that you have to sit down and engage in this banter. Oh, yes, good point, Mr. Broadham, but I'll see you one and raise you one. No, just have a discussion. Find out if you don't know, ask. Instead of pretending you know. How many people do you talk to and you can tell in about 5 minutes, they don't have a clue what they're talking about, but instead of admitting and asking and learning like we used to, they're more interested in just talking to hear themselves talk.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a big issue. Even everyday people you run into, it's they're spouting off the headline news, but no zero details,
That's right.
So, and I guess not to dive too deep into that just yet, but you as a person, you've had some serious success over the past couple years, with becoming an attorney, and you are recognized as the top 40 under 40 and things like that. So what would you consider your top professional achievement up to date?
Man, I appreciate some of the awards that I've received, and I'm grateful for them. Don't get me wrong. That's not what necessarily validates any success for me. I don't necessarily monitor we all keep up with our success to some degree, but I'm not like, oh, what award did I get today? Feels good. It's good to talk about. It's good for advertisement. But I mean, for me, I think when I get a result that a client didn't think I could get, I know it sounds silly and it sounds kind of minimal, but it's not because, despite what you see on TV and despite some of the things you hear, it is hard sometimes to take a set of facts where somebody was wronged and you're going up against a billion-dollar corporation. I mean, I've just finished a case against a 400 or 500 company. They got a lot more money than we do. They had a lot more money than my clients do. They had an army of lawyers, and we had a pretty successful result. That's how I measure my success, is not to sound David and Goliath, but there is something to be said about whenever somebody says you can't do it, oh, you're this small, you're these new people, or we never heard of you. Well, you're going to hear of us now. You know who we are now.
Right.
That's how I measure my success. Does that make sense? Because it's easy to say, oh, yeah, I've got these awards and plaques. Well, man, what clients don't know is some of those awards where you see lawyers like, oh, I'm this great trial lawyer, and I'm not dogging them. They bought that award. And, you know, like that one, there's one behind me. You don't buy that. You can't, and so I'm proud of them, yes, and they can distinguish you from other lawyers, but, you know, you see them everywhere. That, you know, clients shouldn't look at that and go, oh, well, he must be setting the world on fire, because the guy that's running the ad next to him has never tried a case in his life. He's never done that. I take pride and I measure my success on how did I overcome the adversity that I was given. And that's it in its simplest form.
I think that that's a beautiful way to take on life in general, you know, is you know, taking these small wins and making them your own, you know?
Sure.
Have you ever seen Better Call Saul?
Yes, I have.
Gosh, that show, man, that show.
I didn't finish it though. I need to finish. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, dude, I'm glad you said that.
You need to finish it. Yeah. Did you watch Breaking Bad?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I love Breaking Bad. It still goes as my all-time favorite, I think. But yeah, the spinoff Better Call Saul was just amazing. Yeah.
I'm always late to the party though. I watch it like a decade after it came out. But Breaking Bad was phenomenal. Dude, it was phenomenal.
Yeah. Man, what was that? He also had a recent movie.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston. He had it's actually, he was a judge.
I think it is called Judge, isn't it?
Is it
something,
called Judge?
Something like Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Your
That's
Honor.
it. Yes. I just started watching that.
I watched it too. Dude. So you haven't finished it?
I'm on the second season.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you. We'll talk once you finish it.
But man, I was watching that. I'm like, whoa. Like, yeah. You know, there's stuff like that out there as far as, you know, I guess freaking mobsters that run things, you know. So
I grew up a judge's kid, so that one resonated to me, and not necessarily because my dad got hooked up with the mob, but like, you know, there is an extent of that pressure that's put on you, right? I mean, people are watching you, whether you want them to or not. And I saw that show and I was like, man, that's actually pretty good. Now I just, you know, the legal stuff, we got a little. I had to grade it according to my mom and my wife, but you know. It did. That's why I like the show, I think, is because I get that. You know, people are watching. He didn't ask. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I get an aspect of that. So that's why I like the show.
Right. Man, I have a bad habit of sitting down and just binge watching shows.
You and Kyle, man.
Yeah.
Kyle can watch a show for start to finish 20 hours.
Exactly.
On it, you know?
We're not stopping. But you know, along with all this, and I guess talking about you know, binge watching shows and stuff, you know, how are you balancing, you know, your personal life with this work life? I mean, because it's a pretty busy job, you know?
Yeah, man. You know, when I started out, I was working a lot, and I still am. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not working 7 days a week, and I have to make a conscious decision to do that. And that I'm not. That's not puffery. I'm not doing that to say, oh, I'm such a hard worker. But like before I went into private practice, I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week constantly with some 100-hour weeks in there. Because I was the new young associate, but I was fine with it. I was single. I didn't have kids. I wanted to learn my craft and hone it, and I'm still learning and honing it. But I wanted to get to a point where I could go work for myself, and you know, that's how it started. So I was used to that. I told you earlier, you know, I'm in the office by 6:30 every morning. You know, now with a kid, that changes. I'm usually, you know, it varies. It used to be religiously by 6:30. Now, you know, I'm here 6:30 to 7:15. It just depends, right? But I've had to make a conscious effort, and a lot of that of wanting to be self-employed was so I could be there for baseball games, for baseball practice, so I could coach Little League, so I could be there for my wife if she needed something. If I needed to take off, I didn't have to worry, oh, boss, please, I haven't asked off for 2 years, but my wife's sick. I wanted to be in a position where I controlled all of that. Not because I'm a control freak, but because I choose my family over my profession.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not the other way around. And, you know, hope that answers it. But, you know, at the end of the day, it does require a lot of work, and I still work hard. And there's days where I have to say, oh, no, I'm going to be late, or I'm going to be, you know, especially on the weekends for a trial example. There's weekends I'm not there, but those are, whenever I have trial,
Right.
however often that is, right? I mean, a couple, 5-6 times a year, but I'm not absent.
Right.
And
right.
that's why I say is that if I had to make a decision, and I chose my family.
Right. Man, I think that it's really big to be a self-starter, being in the office, because some people that they work for themselves are like, 10, 11 o'clock, maybe I'll stop by the office for, an hour or so.
Yeah.
But, being a self-starter and getting to the office and staying motivated, staying on your work is a big part of success in any field, because I told you earlier, I'm in science,
Yeah.
and in research, you could kind of, it's, you got some wiggle room,
Right.
with attendance and things like that. But to be good at what you do, it's required that you're there and you're working on your craft,
That's exactly right. And, I attribute it, like we were talking a moment ago, is that I was raised old school. And at the time, man, we went to the same school together. You know
Right,
how I was
yeah.
raised. And at the time when everybody else was getting summer vacation, and again, let me just say this. I was raised, my parents gave me more than I deserved. I mean, I was blessed. I know that. But they also made me work and earn everything that I had. And yes, I drove nicer trucks than I should have, all of that. But what people didn't see is that, they were instilling a work ethic in me. Oh, Dad, can I go do this weekend? No, we're going to build something, right? Because it was something he believed in, doing things for yourself instead of paying other people to do it. Just because you have the money to do it doesn't make sense, right?
Sure.
And at the time, it didn't make sense to me. All that kind of stuff of like, no, hey, you're not going to sleep till 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. We're going to get up. Man, I was like, what's going on with this? Like everybody else gets to. Well, you used to tell me, well, let's see where everybody else is down the road, right?
Right,
And my mom used to
exactly.
say the same thing. Is like, I'm not raising everybody else's kids. And at the time, man, I struggled with it. But now, looking back, I'm going to raise my kids the exact same way because I am grateful but for my mom and dad, my grandparents steering me the right way, I wouldn't have that. And
Right.
I will say this, for whatever success I'm having, number one, I'm proud of it, but two, I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have those. You don't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to start working hard.
Right.
And if you do, I applaud you. If you're able to get up at 11 and work for a few hours and you succeed, I applaud that. Unfortunately, I haven't had that luck.
Right.
Not that it's luck, but I don't have that ability either. I'm the kind that if I'm going to get up and speak in front of, a member or 12 members of a jury, I want to be confident. I'm going to be
Right.
the most confident person in the room. And the only way you do this is repetition and going over the documents and having confidence. It takes a long time, man. So, that's
Right.
kind of what it is that it started at a young age, even if I didn't like it.
Right. Man, I think the old school way is just the way to go, man. I know my dad, I remember growing up, my friends would be, going to Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever. I'd be like, hey, Dad, my friends are going to Buffalo Wild Wings. Can I get $20 to get some wings or something? You better get your ass out there and work.
$20 for some wings. That's what my dad would have said. $20 for some wings.
Man, he was like, man, he said he'd look outside. He'd say the grass needs mowing. And I'd be like, God, I go out there and mow that grass.
Yeah, every time. But you're appreciative of it.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. Yeah, man. Those are the things that mold you.
Yep.
I mean, it like you were saying, it kind of instills this level of, I guess, ability to complete things.
Yep.
to accomplish things, and so yeah, 100%. I think that I think your parents did excellent. Like I said, I know you, I know your brother, and so both of you guys, 10 years ago, I think everybody could have guessed that you'd be sitting here today, in this beautiful office.
Some may have had some questions about that.
but that's how life goes. Things don't get handed to you. You gotta work for them, and that's what a lot of people don't see. A lot of people see these items as, oh, nice truck or nice office or whatever, but the amount of work that had to be put into to achieve those is beyond a lot of people's comprehension.
Well, there are some people that make comments about that, or like, oh, it came easy, or oh, you started on third and thought you hit a triple, whatever, right? I mean, I acknowledge my family. I started out very blessed, and again, all those people that are saying that, I say all those, the few people that are saying that, I look at them and say, like, man, you can achieve the same thing if you want to. And I'm not saying that, look at me, oh, I've achieved anything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like, whatever it is you want to be, you can be
100%.
if you want to work. And again, that's cliche, but it's not, because
Are these people saying this on Facebook?
well, yeah, dude. I mean, you want to read about me, go to Facebook, because again, it's a credible source, right? But what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, it's those same people that knock you or say, oh, you can't do it or whatever, or it came easy, especially the ones when they say it came easy. Where were they when I was locked in a room 20 hours a day studying?
Exactly.
Where were they whenever I was studying for 3 months for the bar exam? Where were they whenever I had to miss weekends and cutting up and having fun and, being with my friends because I was sold out? So, that's what, it's easy to say, oh, look, he got it, made it easy. Well, I would challenge you to, what is your goal?
Right.
What is it you want to do? What have you sacrificed to accomplish that? Because that's what it boils down to is I tell everybody, oh man, law school must have been hard. Yeah, it's hard. But I'm not the smartest guy in the room most times, whatever. But what I do know is I'm the hardest working one in the room.
Right.
What I do know is I'm the most prepared one in the room. And that's what I tell everybody. Is, there's a lot of people that have come to me lately about wanting to go to law school. And I can obviously relate to that and that feeling. I just tell them, discipline. Do you have discipline? It's not a question of if you're smart enough. It's not a question of can you figure it out, because it is a game. But do you have the discipline? Whenever it's Friday night and you've been
Your friends are
your
friends
friends
are
are,
going
dude,
out.
let's go out, let's go eat, let's go
You
fish.
have a beer craving.
Yeah,
or,
come over, we're going to drink, come over, we're going to cook, come over, we're going to play Madden, whatever it is, and you've got stuff that's due on Monday, and it's going to take it all weekend. Do you have the discipline to say no? Because it's temporary. You can get through law school in 2.5 years. That's what I did. It's temporary.
Wow, 2.5 years. That's insane. Not to jump off on that just yet, but just to go on the point of, where are these people? It's, I think I read something the other day. It's like, an athlete's not going to make fun of you for being in the gym working out.
Yeah.
Or, a lawyer's not going to make fun of you for studying for the bar exam, and things like that. So yeah, 100%. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is, it takes sacrifice. It takes, because I, at one point had the dream to go to medical school. I was like, this is what I want to do, and, I went through my undergrad. I got my master's degree in biology, and I was like, man, this is it. And I ended up deciding not to do it, but the amount of effort that I found out that it takes, because I was doing the same thing. I was, locking myself in my room for, the whole weekend studying, making note cards. Dude, I still have probably thousands of note cards with, what's the powerhouse of the cell? Mitochondria, so like, just, things that things you have to do that's required to accomplish a goal, so it takes a lot, and anybody that would try to take that effort away, from anybody is just ridiculous.
I do have to say, in all honesty, and I mean this to anybody that's out there saying I don't pay attention to it, and I genuinely don't care.
Yeah, you can't.
When I tell you I don't care, like I just, people say that, because you do care what people think of you to an extent, but to those people I genuinely don't listen to them. People come up and, oh, did you hear what so-and-so said about you? Saw you on the news. Did you see what no, because I don't check it.
Right.
Because lions don't concern themselves with the thoughts of sheep.
Right. Yeah. Hey, exactly.
And that's all it is if you want to be above all of that in every sense, and I'm not talking about I'm above you as a person, but if you want to be above all of the drama, if you want to try to strive and live a happy life, man, who I care who thinks what they think about me? My wife, my child, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my brother-in-law. What they think about me, that's what matters. And as long as they're proud of what I'm doing, that's all. I don't care. You can keep your social media hate because you don't know you don't have enough information. Goes back to what we were talking to form an opinion.
Right. Exactly.
You're conjecturing, you're guessing and speculation. Like it's insufficient. That's why if you're able to form an opinion off of that, then you and I can't be friends anyway.
Right. And that's the thing, this is just a thought, I wonder how many people, wake up, they're scrolling through their phones and they're just getting angry about what they see, and so they're taking that anger and, just a spurt of anger could cause them to type whatever, and it doesn't. They don't actually have to mean it.
Yeah,
but
that's
I mean,
right.
they just it's like spouting off things that just to hear their voice, just to kind of get a little anger out there in the world.
I mean, two things on that is the first one is, look, I have Instagram, I have Facebook and all of that because I think memes are hilarious.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love me a good meme, but what I look on it, and I don't spend much time on those platforms, is because, man, it's just, number one, it consumes,
toxic.
Dude, it consumes people. And then the misinformation combined with my life is better than yours. And trust me, because of this captured moment that I have staged to make it, to make it appear that I'm wealthy, to make it appear that I'm a world traveler. Like, it's like, man, that you want to be miserable? Compare your life to what somebody's fantasy of their life is.
Right.
And so that's why, I don't spend a lot of time on that. And to your point, man, Tony Dungy's he's kind of the mastermind of the, type it out, but don't send it. And I try to abide by that because, look, I admit I'm very self-aware. I know that I have a temper and a short fuse. I get that. I know that. And I try to work on it. So there's times people, something, you get these little news alerts, something happening, and it may just piss you off.
Right.
And then you carry it over, and then you're irritable. There's times that I type up some of the worst emails, and I'll be honest, I do hit send sometimes, okay? But I do try to, I've taken, and again, as you get older, it's like, number one, is that worth the fight? Number two, is it worth what you're saying? And number three, are you justified in saying what you're saying? Probably not off of a knee-jerk reaction. I'm guilty of that. But, Tony Dungy's type it up, but don't hit send. It's a good practice, man.
It is a good practice. Man, I've done that a couple times. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
But sometimes it in those situations, my personal experience, I find myself getting irritated, whatever. I'll wake up the next day and be like,
wasn't that big a deal.
Wasn't a big deal.
Yep.
No big deal. And so, you just gotta kind of take life on the chin sometimes.
That's right.
And keep on moving.
Well, and like we were talking about, as our society changes, I don't think we're as thick-skinned as we used to be.
We're definitely not. Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer in not burning bridges. You never ever know when you're going to need that person. And I'm not saying do it in a calculated or tactful manner of like, oh, I'm not going to mistreat you because I may need you one day. No, it's like you said, if you wake up the next day and go, probably wasn't that big a deal, would you rather wake up and go, probably wasn't that big a deal, glad I didn't send it? Or would you rather wake up and go, wasn't that big of a deal? But, man, I sent that. I'm going to be so embarrassed around that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's easy to say it because in the moment you're so pissed. But, the next time it happens to me, I'm going to remember this conversation. And I'm going to go, I was talking with Jared about that. No, I'm not going to hit send.
Right.
So, because nobody wants to be that guy anyway.
Right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, depending on the level of the matter,
That's right.
It's usually something that you could just brush off and move forward. So.
That's right.
But I've been practicing that myself. I've run into my own issues.
It's
let me go ahead and tell you. And sometimes it's hard to keep my mouth shut. But man, I've been, like I said, I've been working on it. And
that's growth,
man. The older I get, the more that I realize, like, man, not everything needs to be vocalized.
And you don't have to get the last word.
Right.
That's what I've learned is that just because you weren't the last one to speak doesn't mean you lost the argument.
Right. Yeah, that's actually very, very powerful.
So, well, look, I'm not trying to be the philosophizer, but I'm just saying it's things that I've learned is that, and again, it's because I've got guidance and grandparents and everything else that every time I would get out, hey, stupid.
Right.
You don't have to say the most to win. And usually it's the guy that says the least that's most powerful, right?
Right.
And, that email can go unresponded. If they insult you or piss you off, like, so what? It's going to bother them more that you didn't respond and didn't engage.
Right.
That text or that client phone call or that Google review. That's a big one. People, I watch these businesses and they get in a pissing match over a bad Google review. Man, that's what they're baiting you into. It's like, let it go. Be above it.
Right.
Be above it.
Right. Yeah, the Google reviews are funny. I actually had a girl at my apartment. She works at the apartment. And she was like, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm like, yeah, sure. What do you need? And she's like, can you go leave me a good Google review? And she was like, some lady just bashed me. And I was like, yeah, I got you, But, I didn't realize how big of an importance that played for businesses and things. because I'm not one. When I go, I'm not necessarily looking at the Google reviews.
Yeah,
just because
sure.
I know how people are. Like Facebook, for example.
Yep.
People just get wordy they start typing and they start thinking of other clever ways to twist the conversation. So it kind of gets, I think, expanded.
Absolutely. But, I'll say this as far as Google reviews. I'm horrible about leaving them. Now, if somebody does me like an exceptional job on something and I actually take the time to think or if it's a business.
Sure.
Because I own a business. I'm a partner here and Google, man, it helps me tremendously. I get a lot of people that say, I saw your Google reviews. But at the same time, you got to be cautious with that because there are people out there that know that's important and crucial to a business. Because think about it. If while me and you may not necessarily go, let me go read their Google reviews, a lot of people do, especially when it comes to, a business. I'll be honest, if I'm looking at a business or especially if I'm out of town or something and I need to do business with somebody, I'm going to go read what they say about them. So, take it with a grain of salt because somebody may be trying to do with what they did to that girl at the apartment. Leave a negative review just because they know it hurts. They know that it's frustrating. People are going to see it. But at the same time, man, it could be a good tool to spread, people doing a good job.
Right. Man, I'll never forget. I think I had somebody give me one Google review at one point. I was working at a restaurant and it was an interesting encounter because I was a waiter. I was waiting tables, and there were two guys sitting at the bar, and they were like, "Hey, excuse me, I had just got to work. I was, whatever. Hey, excuse me, there's a roach right there." And I was like, I looked, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess that is a roach, huh?"
Glad I don't own it.
Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "He's just here for the special. What can I get for y'all?" and they were like, "We'll take a water." And I got back and they were gone. And next thing you know, I had a Google review. They were like, "Man, we told the waiter that there was a roach, and he said he just looked at it and was like, he's here for the daily special."
I mean, what else are you supposed to be like? Yeah, dude, it's a health code violation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna chase that roach down.
Yeah. Let me stop. Here, I'm gonna pick it up, then touch your food.
Right, exactly.
Jeez,
and so, anyways, yeah, it's a wild time we're living in.
Dude, I'm telling you, people, man, there's something else. But let's be honest though, on that point, I like to people watch.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, in our profession, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of studies and stuff that like, oh, you need to read people. Like, well, okay, whatever. Like, man, I'm just practicing law.
Right,
like y'all
right.
are up here.
Right.
I'm practicing law, but I do love to people watch. And you could those kind of people. I guarantee you could have picked them out in the restaurant, just sitting there like,
yes,
you know what I'm saying? I love that. I love going to public places, academy, whatever. If I'm shopping, dude, I'm watching people because there's so many different walks of life. So anyway, sorry about that tangent.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of different walks of life. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, I was just talking to somebody yesterday, telling them, like, they're like, "Man, I don't understand this person, whatever." And I was like, "Man, everybody has different personalities, and everybody goes about this crazy life in a different form and fashion, and they take things, maybe a different way than you take them." Sure. And I was like, you got to take people with a grain of salt. I think I have a pretty strong belief, and you may have a different opinion about this, just because I mean I'm sure with your dad being a criminal lawyer, you've seen some probably the worst of the worst. But I like to believe that most people are good. And
I do too.
And I like to think that there's more good people out there than bad, or at least I'd like to believe that.
Agree.
So yeah, it's just one of those things. Everybody's different, and I guess not to jump too fast off of that, but in your profession, how does one, we were talking about separate personal life from your career, but also how do you distinguish your personal beliefs with like legal obligations?
Man, that's tough. Because look, I've represented people that had botched abortions. I've represented people that did immoral things to a child. And it's not because I'm proud of it. It's because I fundamentally disagreed with it and struggled to take the case. But at the end of the day, their rights and liberties do deserve to be protected. And so when you say it out loud, it's awful. And that's why I had a hard time with it, is because I fundamentally opposed what it is that they've done. But what I try to give the benefit of the doubt to is that they need a lawyer too. If I'm not going to do it, who is? And, it's hard. Man, I'll just tell you, there are times that my religious beliefs and my moral compass won't let me take certain cases. That being said, whole separation of church and state, man, that's what the law is designed for. You're supposed to take that element out. Easier said than done, right? I mean, it's almost impossible to do completely, but is there a way to do it where it's just blind? I see the facts? No, because the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, I know what you've done. Does it affect my ability to advocate for them? No, because that's what they're hiring me to do. Does that mean I'm going to tolerate them or have a conversation with them or sit down and talk with them? No. I have no respect for them. But at the end of the day, it's just like criminal defense lawyers. You hear so many people say, "Oh, he's a child molester. How could you do that? How could you represent him? How could you?" And I sit there and go, "Look, no matter how despicable it is, that's what the Constitution says, is they're entitled to make sure that somebody protects their constitutional rights to a fair jury trial." Because the way I see it is, and again, people won't understand this, but what if you're wrongfully accused of touching a child? What if you're wrongfully accused of a crime? Do you want people to go, "Oh, you did that, I'm not going to represent you"? Or do you want somebody to stand up and say, somebody that's probably, you want the best. You want somebody to stand up and go, "I'll fight for you. I have no respect for you. And if I'll hear you out. And if the evidence suggests it, then I'll believe you." But it's easy to cast the stone at the person that you automatically assume did it. But that's why it's so important to have somebody to represent them.
Yeah.
It's because they've already casted that stone. And so I know that's a long way around of answering your question, but the point I'm making is that is hands down the hardest part of this profession.
Wow.
Because I swore to uphold the laws of the Constitution.
Yeah.
And I'm going to. And so, again, I always think about it because I can testify, my family can testify. Man, if the machine wants to go against you, they can. And, rightfully so or wrongfully so. So think about whenever people ask that question, how could you represent them? What if it was you and you were wrongfully accused? Because you're just assuming their guilt just like everybody else is.
Right.
And yeah, they may be guilty.
Right.
I don't know that.
That headline. Yeah.
That's exactly right. But that's why I say is just remember, if it was you or your family member, would you want every lawyer in town to go, "I'm not representing you because of the nature of your charge or your case"? I wouldn't. I'd want somebody to stand up and say, "I don't care what they say. You have constitutional rights." So that's a deep issue, man. That one hits home. So sorry to go off like that.
No, please. Yeah, no, because here's the thing. I'm not familiar with your career, like in law in general. Like I hear, "Oh, I'm a lawyer. I do this and that," and
there's never any follow up on
exactly.
that. Yeah.
And so understanding the actual career is kind of why I'm here.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so appreciative of you doing it, is because I think people see, that lawyer wants that case because he's an ambulance chaser and he's going to make money. I get called that all the time. It's a joke, and I joke that I am because I do personal injury, right? But I mean, that doesn't mean that I see dollar signs above everything else. Like, I'm going to choose to do the right thing over making money. I'm going to choose to be able to sleep at night. I'm going to choose to do it the right way, and that's what we've set out to do. And there's this misconception that all lawyers are bad people. I will be the first one to say there are a lot of lawyers I don't like, a lot of them, because they're not honorable, they're not honest, they have no integrity. But that's true with any profession. But it makes it harder for the ones that are trying to separate themselves and do it the right way. So, what I want people to know about this profession is like, at the end of the day, when you pick up the phone and call your lawyer and it's 1:00 in the morning on a Saturday, remember, he has a family too. It's so easy to see. It's like your dentist. Is your dentist a person to you, or is it, "I'm going to the dentist office"? Like, let's just go ahead and be honest about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you may have a relationship with your dentist, or you may have been your dentist for 30 years. But for the most part,
going to the dentist.
Here's a better one.
Going to the doctor.
Here's a better one, because some people have a relationship. You're a mechanic. If your car breaks down, are you really there to talk or understand? No, you're just, "I want my car fixed. Why wasn't it fixed last week when you told me?" The point I'm making is that we've become so removed as a society, like to the needs or recognition of others. And I'm not saying, look, that you hire lawyers and that they're not there to do a job. But what I am saying is, like, going back to technology too, it's instant. You can get me 24 hours a day, and if I don't respond within 15 minutes, people think that's unreasonable. Like, this is my profession. It's not my life. Right. And for some people, it is their identity. It's their everything. No, I recognize myself as a husband, a father, a brother, a son, a Christian, like those things. But a lawyer is what I do. So, to have this opportunity to explain that, man, I just think it's awesome to where people can at least see there is a lot of thought that goes into this other than making money.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's the cliche that goes with lawyers, or you did it to make money. Well, no, I did it to help people, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of time I spend turning my wheels of how best to serve people.
Right. Man, like I said, I've known you and your family for a while, and you guys have always been very well structured. Like, you guys have always been, what you say is what you do, very honorable. So I could see where people would want you to represent.
Well,
that.
I mean, I appreciate that, because that is you. I mean, that's the biggest compliment you could give me, is because I want the reputation, and I think I'm starting to develop it, because it's what I strive for, is that if I tell you I'm going to do something.
I mean, even in school, man, like that's how you were.
Well, look, me and we can have a disagreement. We can, but if I tell you something and I mean it, that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
It's just like, it's like growing up. That's what, you watch these kids, and like, because I have nieces and stuff, I'm watching them, and there's little boys fighting and stuff. I always think about it like that's it in its rawest form, right? It's like this little boy, I was watching him, and he was clearly the undersized one and all that. You could tell he didn't really want to stand up for himself, but he did. And I got to think about it, that's kind of like what it is. No matter what the adversity is, no matter what it is, like if I tell you I'm going to do something, like this kid, for instance, was like, he's popping him with like a rubber band. Like, you pop me with that rubber band again, we're going to fight. Yeah. You may win, but at least you got to fight. That's the reputation I want, is that at the end of the day, if I tell you I'm going to fight for you, I'm going to do it. If I tell you you're wrong and I'm going to go do X, Y, Z, I'm going to go try to prove you're wrong.
Right.
And, that's, to me, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're whatever job, I don't care, just as a person. If we all strive, and I'm not saying strive to live like me, because we all got our own issues, right?
Sure.
But my point is that if we all just lived like that, where our word meant something, our integrity meant something, wouldn't we be better off? And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just, like I told you all earlier, I'm trying to leave it better than I found it.
Right. Yeah, integrity. That's a great way to describe it, for sure. Yeah, a lot of people are lacking integrity, and it's I think the whole society, with the pop off of social media and things like that, it makes it easy for people to not have integrity, to kind of be somebody that they're not, and to kind of embody something that is the complete opposite of who they are.
Well, I mean, just look at where we are. You're ridiculed for having standards.
Sure.
You're ridiculed for calling out things that used to be not accepted. You're used to, you are the minority if you're not encouraging kids to do what is being encouraged today. And I'm not getting into any specific topics. I'm just saying that across the board, you're persecuted for standing up and having an opinion that's contrary to these bumper sticker headlines. Like, I mean, this cancel culture. Why is it okay for one side to tell me my opinion is wrong? Their opinion is that my opinion is wrong, and some people's lives are ruined over that. Like, I mean, it's asinine to me, because I watch the world just still declining, and nobody has any morals or scruples, but the few that do, they attack. Man, it's tough. It's hard.
It is tough, yeah. It's a weird time we're living in, man.
Man, I'm telling you. I always joke. I think I was born 100 years too late.
Yeah.
Like, I really do. It's because my wife tells me I'm an old man. That's what she tells me all the time. And look, it's taken me a long time to implement and recognize these things. And it's still not perfect, right? I mean, I have a hard time. I have a short temper. The Tony Dungy thing, I have to actively think about it. Like, it's not human nature for me. But, my wife always jokes that I'm an old man. Well, I mean, I take that as a compliment, because I'm trying to do it a different way.
Right.
And she knows she's giving me a hard time. She feels the same way about things that I do. But at the same time, 100 years ago, man, I think I'd have fit in just fine.
How, I guess speaking of like the the changes over time, how are you staying up with the current changes in law now?
We're required to do continuing legal education each year.
Okay.
We're required to. You have to do. Man, I should know this. I think it's 15 hours, and you have to do ethics law. And a lot of it's. I mean, there's so many different seminars you can do.
Right.
You can do stuff that specializes in your area of practice. So I do commercial litigation. I do personal injury litigation. Any civil litigation seminars, and it helps you. But a lot of it's your own study, man. But there's resources available to help you keep up with all of that. But it's not like I have to sit there every day and read the law and like, okay, this changed. Now, when the law changes and it comes out September 1st, then I stop and I look and make sure, did this affect my practice?
Right.
Are there things? And again, that goes back to doing the work, making sure you're capable and up to snuff to be able to represent these people. But there are, that's the whole point of the continuing legal education, is to make sure and help you stay on top.
I see. Yeah, and I can imagine that, I guess the career in general is a lot. It's definitely a lot. And so that's, ethics plays a big part in it. It plays I'm working at MD Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And so, man, they're always sending us some type of courses to take,
Sure.
or, classes to
HIPAA and all
sit
that,
through. Yeah. And so, man, I definitely understand the workload that it takes just to kind of stay up to date, because everything's moving at a fast pace, So, I guess along with the changes, how are you preparing for like high profile cases and stuff? Like how does that happen?
Man, I like to think that I prepare for each case the same way. Obviously, there's more on the line.
Sure.
For some of these higher profile cases. So the funny thing is that I mean this is a JP court where you can go try it and there's no record and, justice of the peace.
Gotcha. Okay.
Used to be small claims court. You'll see the justice of the peace. You can have a jury trial in there. I've tried, I don't know how many cases in JP court. There's no record. It's just you're trying it, spitball, the rules of evidence sometimes apply, sometimes they don't. It's kind of the Wild West, man. It's a lot of fun. But I prepare equally for those because I like to be prepared. I like to be polished. And a lot of lawyers, man, and look, I don't blame them because you can file appeals and all kinds of stuff, so it doesn't matter. But they'll just walk in and first time they looked at the file and all right, let's get after it. And it's cool. I am a firm believer in being prepared. I am a firm believer of knowing what it is I'm going to talk about, making sure it's good case law, making sure I'm right on that point. I don't care. So that's why I say is across the board, it's because I'm OCD about that stuff. So that's pretty much the same. How I handle discussing the case is different. Who I'm going to talk to, which media outlets we're going to talk to, how much information we're going to give them. All of that's tactful, right? But as far as preparation goes, it's just, it's a lot of sitting down, meeting with your clients, reviewing all the documents. The big thing is, and I'll say this, most of the time the difference comes out in what's called discovery. That's where they give you the documents and give you certain responses. It usually boils down to who's going to sit down if they dump 2,000 documents on you and sit down and go through them. I will, because I'm OCD about it, because the people I used to work for trained me that way. My dad's trained me that way. Do the work to where when you get to trial and you're speaking and you're looking good and you're polished and I'm not fumbling around, I know what the document says. The other guy's not. And that's the preparation. There's a mindset, but on this higher profile stuff, same work, but it's just all about how you manage it because everybody knows about it. That's the difference. And I'll say the hardest, to answer your question more specifically, I think the hardest part about managing those cases is everybody wants to know about it. And I'm like, can't talk about it. Right. I can talk to you about what's been published. I can talk to you about what's public record. I can talk to you about what the defendant may have said. But I can't come in and say, here's some top secret details. Like, I can't do that.
Right.
So that's kind of the hardest part is managing that side of it as opposed to just, it's another case and, time to prepare.
Right. And I was kind of laughing in my head because you were talking about everybody knows about it. Everybody knows about it. And speaking of one that I guess one of the more popular ones that everybody knows about is this Lux Life case that you have going on.
The Travel Lux.
Yeah. The Travel Lux, yeah.
and Emily Lockard Furry and her husband and all that. Yeah.
Wow.
Man, that one, everybody knows about that one.
Yeah. I mean, I see all kinds of Facebook posts about it. People giving updates. Oh, it looks like she's got arrested again. And
yeah, I mean, and every single time she's arrested and it circulates, dude, I get called. And look, people can call up here and talk to me about anything they want to anytime. I'm an open book. I help them however I can. But they'll just call, hey, I want to know what's going on. I'm like, are you a victim? No. Do you know a victim? No. So I was just calling to see what was happening. And I'm like,
are you serious?
Oh yeah, dude. And look, I'm not making fun of them or anything. I appreciate the call, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the managing side of it. That's different. It's like, I can't have those conversations, and I'm not going to engage in those conversations. Right. I'm not, because I mean, ethical duty aside and stuff, that's not what's in the best interest of my client.
Right.
But you know, this thing is, you can just Google it and you'll see it's all over the nation, man. People writing about it, people posting about it. They've been affected from coast to coast, and New York and Boston. It's crazy that our area has produced such a massive story.
It's crazy because I saw she grew up in Countrywood or
right here in our area,
so
man.
I saw that, and you know, the first time I saw it, I was like, what is this? You know, like I didn't really pay too much attention about it, and then I started hearing it in conversation, and it kind of popped off. And so, to my understanding, and I know that you have, you know, things that you can and can't talk about, but you know, from my understanding, that there's this lady who had this travel agency and was charging people to book vacations, and they were getting sent false confirmations and things like that. I mean,
in its simplest form, and I do have to be careful what I say, but
sure.
In its simplest form, it's one of two classes of victims. And again, this is what I've talked to the news about several times, is everybody wants to know, how does it start? How did it affect them? How do I know I'm not one of them, right? Mm. There's really two classes of victims. And the first one is, I booked a trip. I was going to Ireland, London, wherever I was going, right? Bahamas.
Through this company.
Sure, through Emily Lockard Furry's company, or her directly, or Travellux Official LLC. And they get these confirmations. Everything's wonderful. Everything's good. Oh, I can't wait. Keep in mind, we're talking about elderly couples. Keep in mind, we're talking about newlyweds, people that are in super exciting or super deserving portions of their life. And what I mean by that is, one couple was saved up for a decade to go on a trip. So you imagine having the discipline to save for a decade, and you're elderly and you've looked for. We'll get into that. But my point is, they get the confirmation and they land in the country, and they start noticing they have problems with, hey, where's my taxi? Where's my shuttle that was going to pick me up? That's weird. Oh, well, I'll take a taxi. And they get to the hotel. The hotel's never heard of them. Sorry, Mr. Brodham. I see you have a confirmation number with us, and yeah, we sent that, but you didn't pay for it. You're going, yeah, I did. Yeah, well, you need to call your travel agent. Meanwhile, you've wire transferred $50,000 to them. So you start calling, it's just a confusion. It's just a mix-up. When you get back, it wasn't a mix-up. You transferred some money. It's hard to say there's a mix-up when you transferred money somewhere for a specific purpose. That money wasn't used to fulfill that specific purpose, and now it's gone. I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is that math doesn't add up by my check.
Right.
The other class of victim is, man, they didn't even make it out of Houston. They get to the airport, they didn't even have airline tickets, and they've paid. I've got some clients. I've got contacts that have spent significant money, over $100,000, $200,000. So that's what I'm saying is like, people say their initial reaction is, oh, well, they lost out on a vacation. Well, no, it's much, much more than that. And, not to go off on this narrative, I'll let you jump in, but what people need to understand is, it's not just a vacation. Is it just a vacation to the elderly couple that saved up for a decade at this portion in their life to travel? Because they wanted to look at the lineage from which they come. They wanted to look at their culture. They wanted to see where their family was from. And they saved a decade to do it. Is that just a vacation? That decade that they've worked towards this the week before they go? It's not a vacation to me, man. And that's why I've taken these cases. Is that feeling? I mean, you feel that, right?
Right. Absolutely.
That's why I'm taking these cases. So, to answer your question, that's it in a nutshell. That's the two type of victims. I'm not going to dignify it by using saying the word elaborative or elaborate, but it's a tactful plan. Give or take, there's some more ins and outs in it, but that is it in its nutshell.
Wow. Yeah, that's I don't even know what to say about. I mean,
yeah.
So, another thing that I've been seeing is, people are coming out of the woodworks all over the United States.
Yeah.
With these issues.
Yep.
From this lady.
Mm-hmm. I've had people contact me from LA, Boston, New York, Miami, Alabama, Kansas City. I'm forgetting some other places, but you name it. I mean, they're still contacting me. I had somebody call me from New York this week. So, I mean, look, I wish that I could wave some magic wand to make this better for people. I can't. I wish that it would stop. I wish that it never happened, because it's so much bigger than a vacation. And at the end of the day, all I can do is try to help make it right. And that's what I'm trying to do. But yeah, when you look at the reach this thing has, it is hard to believe from Beaumont, Sour Lake, China area that something like this, because you see it on a Netflix documentary. Sure. It's like, oh, how could these people not know? Right. How could, but you look at it and it's like, because it was somebody we trusted in our community.
Right.
It's not, it'd be like me and you doing business. We went to school together. I know your mom. You know my mom. So you automatically, we trust each other.
Right.
That's how this thing got out of hand. And anyway, it's spread to quite the, it's got quite the reach.
Right. Wow. So I don't know if this is overstepping. You could bypass the question if it's not appropriate. But what's the outcome for this? I mean, what for your clients? I mean, does this lady pay the money back? I mean, what's the final result of this?
As far as we're concerned, I mean, obviously my people want their money back. They paid for something, they didn't get it.
Sure.
But how it's handled is really up to them. It's up to her. It's up to her company. And why I say that is we've given the opportunity to make it right. Nobody wants lawsuits. Nobody wants to file a lawsuit. Nobody wants to see all this happen. People aren't taking joy in that.
Right.
I get asked all the time, what are my people feeling? My people are feeling anger. They're feeling devastation. They're feeling confusion. But nobody, not a single person I have talked to feels revenge. Not a single one of them. That's what is. So when you ask, I guess, what is it, the outcome look like? Every one of them will tell you justice and accountability, whatever that looks like. Nobody's signing up because they think they're going to get a bunch of money from a lawsuit, because they know the chances of them getting money it's hard to get money from somebody that doesn't have it. So it's not that. It's just they want accountability and justice. They want somebody to take responsibility, and they want the right party to take responsibility. So, that's what it looks like in the end result. What that is it money? That's all I can do. As a civil lawyer, there's other things I can do, but for the most part, in most cases, justice comes in the form of a dollar. Because that's really the only tool. Nothing hits you harder than your pocketbook.
Right.
And that's really what the end result is. People aren't asking for anything other than what they're entitled to. And we want a refund.
Right.
And how that plays out it's really not up to us. It's either up to them or it's up to a Jefferson County jury. Wow.
So we're taking this straight from the home.
Oh yeah, man. It's I say a Jefferson County jury. It's just going to be wherever the lawsuits are filed right now.
Sure.
We just finished one in Hardin. There's one in Jefferson. There's going to be a few more, but it just depends on where everybody's at.
Right.
It's either our preference is obviously just we want accountability, and we want this to be over with as fast as possible, because people are ready to move on. Man.
Right.
This is again. It's yes, people are reminded of this when they see it. News headline and the mugshots and all. Right.
Sure.
But man, people want closure.
Right.
And that's all I want is I want people to get I want the accountability. I want the justice that they want, because it's my job to, but also is like, I want the closure for them.
Right.
Nobody's out trying to hurt anybody. Nobody's out trying to make.
Headache.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, my deal is nobody is trying to harm anyone. Nobody is trying to hold her feet to the fire. It's all about just let's make it right.
Right.
And let's move on.
Right. Man, oh man. Yeah, I could just imagine, because, I mean, like I said, I'm not familiar with law too much, but I know that some of these things could get tied up for a hot minute. You know?
And I don't suspect that in this case. I think that, because again, I don't know. I mean, I know about it, but I don't make any comments on any of the criminal stuff that she's got going on. I know we've all seen it on the news, but I in no way comment on any of that because I just don't know. That's outside of my arena, right? I don't do criminal law. But, these things can tie up. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to get in, negotiate it, and if there's no negotiation to be had, that's okay. They're not the first ones to do it to us. We go to a jury. Right. That's the beautiful thing about our country, and is we have the best system in the world. And I tell people this when I pick a jury. You have what's called voir dire. It's where you pick a jury. And I tell them, we have the most beautiful system. We take advantage of it, or we take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
You don't ever think about it, but it's nice to know if I have a decision or if I have a dispute, that I'm not stuck with that. I can go and have people listen to me, tell my side of the story, and see who they believe.
Right.
It's nice to have that here because people feel like they were wronged. And at the end of the day, if the other side doesn't feel like they were, or that they wronged anybody, that's the great thing about our jury system, is that it's not up to either side to decide. There's a neutral, and they're going to hear the facts, they're going to hear the evidence of it, and they get to make the decision.
Wow. Man, I have a deep respect for your career. Like I said, coming into this interview, I kind of had an idea, but just kind of hearing the things that you have to deal with. I mean, just off the wall. I mean, things that are not in my world. I don't have to deal with people being deceitful too much or any of that. So I mean, it's definitely a unique job for sure.
Well, it's why what you said earlier resonated with me is that you mentioned you want to believe there's more good people out there. So do I. Sure. I have to believe that because we see a lot of negative stuff.
Right.
We see a lot of, especially on the criminal side, is you see a lot of, there's times where you hear something and you're going, my God, another human being's capable of that. I have to believe that there's more good people out there because otherwise, did you talk about getting a hardened heart and callous and all that? I don't want to be that person. Right. I don't want to. So I'm very optimistic that I'm a firm believer. I think there's more good people than bad. I think good people make bad decisions. Does that necessarily make them a bad person? No. It's just like the case we're talking about. I'm not going to come out and say that I think anybody's a bad human being because I don't.
Right.
I think people make a mistake. They don't know what to do. They get stuck.
Yeah, get too
and they
caught
dig
up
in.
it.
Yeah, that's right. And so I'm not ever going to say that. I don't. I give people the benefit of the doubt, and I give them the opportunity to make it right.
Right.
Because if you don't, you'll get calloused, and it's easy to start going, we got a world full of bad people. Mm. No, we don't. We got a world full of good people. It's just now the bad people make the headlines. That's the difference.
Right. Exactly. Man, yeah, that one, that's it's crazy to me. You know, but I guess that's the world we live in. And yeah, I definitely, I would like to believe that there's, a lot of good people and good people make dumb decisions.
That's right. That's how I see it anyway.
Right.
I refuse to believe that we live in a world of bad people. I think we live in a world where we have a lot of differing opinions, and it's easy to call somebody else a bad person. But having a different opinion doesn't make you a bad person. Sure, we can disagree in politics. Look at our politics right now.
Yeah. The politics is a very, very touchy subject right now.
Well, I mean, just because you may be a Republican or Democrat or whatever, if I'm the opposite, does that make me a bad person? No. Like, there are bad people.
Facebook says it does.
Well, yeah, I say. I mean, Facebook is a credible source, but at the end of the day, I mean, there are bad people that do bad things.
Right.
But there's 99.9% of the time it's good people that made a bad choice.
Right.
So, anyway.
Well, earlier we were talking about, the introduction of AI and things like that. What kind of impact do you think that AI and technology will have on the legal field in the coming years?
Dude, it already has. I mean, there's this big push to use AI.
How so?
drafting documents, for example, drafting a legal document. They're like, oh, you should
Like
use
chat GPT.
Yeah, Chat GPT. And I'll just be honest with you, man. Call me skeptical, call me whatever you want. I'm not. If you were my lawyer, I wouldn't want you typing in a few keywords and hitting a button to generate what it is I need. After I've spent an hour and a half, 2 hours talking to you, telling you what I need.
Right.
Because yes, it might do a fine job. I've seen times where it generates a document and it was good. I've seen times where it looked good and it was completely detrimental to a client. I think that stuff scares me in the legal field because I like the thought of I want a human brain reviewing it. I want a human brain going, okay, yeah, it may take longer, but they heard me. They know what I want.
Right.
They know what I need.
Yeah, I mean, it's only fed
what you input.
Right.
And if you input a typo, it can kill it. And so, do I think there's some positives to it? Yeah, I'm sure there is. But like Chat GPT, for example, there's a big push for that because it speeds up. Oh, it's supposed to keep clients' bills less. Well, I don't know about you, but if I'm hiring a lawyer, yes, you don't want them to take advantage of you hourly and rates and all that. And man, that's a trust factor. That's a different thing. And it's what I tell all my folks is I know you don't know me from Adam, but give me a little time and you'll see I'm trustworthy when it comes to all that. And once they do, if I ask them, do you want this computer to draft this based on a few keywords or do you want me to sit down and do it? Well, I want you to do it. Why? Well, you've done it 200 times. And I say, well, yeah, but this robot, this fake brain over here, it can do it much faster, costless. They don't care anything about that.
Right.
But there's this big push to use it. I'm not comfortable with it because here's what people don't realize. Even if, for example, ChatGPT drafted that document, I'm still going to sit down and read every single word of it. So now you're getting double billed. It's just there's a push and there's a thought that it can save money, and maybe it does. I don't know. I'm not willing to bet the liability and the malpractice on it, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's pushed in science too. They were like, you need to use this, and if you're not using it, you're messing up. But with your point, I really think that there's an importance of the human aspect.
No doubt. There's no doubt.
That, and we've come this far,
so far,
based on the human mind. And so, and I use it too. I use it to like check some stuff,
Sure.
Maybe even calculations. Like if I'm counting, a number of cells and a couple milliliters of whatever, I'll plug it in and it'll, chug out whatever I need. But man, there's the human aspect is definitely important in things like this.
Well, and at the end of the day, in my line of work, when it comes down to it and it's time for the trial or it's time for the hearing or whatever it is, and we're in court, Chat GPT is not the one in there arguing it.
Right.
It's me.
Right.
I want to know what the document says. I want to know what I put. I want to know what I was thinking when I typed it. I want to know why I chose that case law. I want to know why I made that specific point right there. Because, again, it's all got to be regurgitated in a court of record.
Right.
It's all got to be argued in front of a judge, a jury, so forth. You're not removing that human aspect of it. And that's why I say look, it's great. And I have colleagues that love AI. They love it. But they're also in different areas of practice. It's great for account managing and all that. Like your in-house stuff, they love it. I'm old school. What if it fails? What if your computer crashes? What if the storage didn't back up? Dude, I'm just telling you, it can be a very good thing, and I'm not trying to make it sound negative. It's just for the way I practice law, I don't think it's the most beneficial to my clients.
I think that it's probably good to be skeptical, kind of a little bit, in any field with AI, because AI is doing some pretty crazy things, So who knows what they roll out in the next couple of years, but it seems to be progressively getting more incorporated in our daily lives.
Well, and I'll just say this, going back to that whole conversation we had about earlier,
right,
about those algorithms and how things popped up. Don't think for 2 seconds that isn't all coming into play, because it is. Everybody talks about, you hear the worst, they're going to have robots. Now, look, I'm not saying all that. But if you think for 2 seconds that that's not a threat, man, I think you'd be mistaken, because there is going to come a time and point where that's weaponized at some point. I mean,
you got your phones, which are always with you.
How much on that device right there? I don't put credit cards. I don't put none of my sensitive information's on this phone, because I see it. I know what happens with these. If we polled 100 people and said, How many of you have any of the following sensitive data on there? Your driver's license? How many times have you ever typed it in there? How many times have you been uploading something or purchased something and had to type in a credit card? Man, they got it. They got it. And I don't care what anybody says. I've seen it. It is not safe on this device. Your photos. Now with all this new crazy AI and photo editing, they can make it look like you did something you never did. And I'm not an alarmist. Look, I'm not an alarmist. I'm a realist. But that's terrifying to me. And I don't care what anybody says. Elon Musk could be sitting there explaining it to me, who I love his opinions. I love listening to him. I'm still not going to be okay with it because, again, those few bad people we were talking about in our society can figure out a way to use it.
Right.
And, of course, that's the argument with everything. I get that. But if you're asking me to get on board 100%, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I ever will be because it's good to have a little bit of a healthy skepticism.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's I know recently I follow Jake Paul on Instagram, and he just started a new company called W. It's like this they do shampoo, conditioner, body spray, I don't know, whatever. And he sent out to advertise. He sent out these care packages, with all the products in them and stuff, with to like celebrities and stuff, with a video of them as an AI saying, "Oh yeah, use W, use this," and they would open it and it would start playing and it would be them talking and they're like, "This is
I never said that.
Insane." Yeah,
wow.
Exactly. And so you'll have to look it up, but man, it's crazy. Like they sent it to a couple like UFC fighters, and the UFC fighters are like, "Yeah, we just got done working out, but now we're gonna use."
That's
it's like, and it literally looks exactly like them. Like it's wild.
Well, I mean, you think about it. It's just like if you're ever sued or something, and they say you said this, and you're like, "No, I didn't," and they say, "Here it is," and you're going, "That's AI." How are you gonna prove that?
Right. Exactly.
How's the average Joe gonna prove that?
Right. Yeah.
That's what scares me is what's coming with it.
Right.
I don't know. Again, maybe it's because my little brain can't wrap around the concept of it. I don't know. But it's just it's not even that it's so foreign. It's just the concept of it, and I think people would be shocked at how much AI is used. But again, it's just we're not educated enough on it. Or let me rephrase that: I'm not, and it scares me.
It is. It's scary. It's definitely. I think it scares the people that are very educated on it too.
I think the more educated I become on it, the more afraid of it I'm going to be. I mean, honestly.
And what about social media? I know we talked about the phones and stuff, but in a sense of like actual court cases, how is social media influencing court cases? Because we had the whole Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, and everybody was tuned in on that and giving their opinions and things like that. So, I mean, how, like, in a case like that, how is social media affecting that?
Well, me personally, I think that the judge should have never allowed the cameras in the courtroom. It was already a 3-ring circus, but because it's Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, it was going to sell.
Right, yeah.
Right? Drama sells. People love drama. That's why they call, "Hey, man, what's going on with that case?" They love drama.
Which is crazy.
But yeah, well, look, hey, to each their own, I guess, but how does it influence? Man, drama. They love it. Drama sells, and so they get involved, and it's awesome, right? I mean, it is. I love it from the standpoint of people are taking an interest in the law, but that's a very, 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 very tiny fraction of actually why they're watching it. It was Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Oh, how'd he cheat on her? Oh, a mega pint of wine. Like they love that stuff from it, and that's cool, but. More realistically, how technology is being used and through social media is I pick up my, I get hired on a case and I need to investigate Jared Broadham. Sure, we have private investigators. We have people that do all that. I can learn the most useful information there is out there in about 3 clicks on a person.
Wow.
You don't know how many times I've offered exhibits into evidence that came straight from the person's Facebook. I would say most cases. Most cases I'm doing that. And it's just, you would think they wouldn't need a lawyer to tell them. You would think that but they'll comment about the case. So when you ask how it influences, it influences, just not in the way most people think. Most people think, social media, like, let's talk about O.J. Simpson's trial, how it was all TV. Like, I get that. But those are few and far between. The more appropriate and the more prominent influence would be social media. I'm not going to say any names. I'm not going to say anything, but I know of a case in which a woman was had a DWI, hit and seriously injured somebody. In court and depositions, oh, I'm so sorry. It was a horrible thing that I did, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, man, you can tell she's being coached. You can tell she's polished. But that's like, you can tell she really doesn't care. It's kind of cold. The night before she was sentenced in her criminal case for it, because they were trying to decide, did she get probation? What did she post on Facebook, Jared? I'll tell you. In essence, she posted something to the effect of, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said something to the effect of, y'all say a prayer for me, about to find out if I have to do a little time for hitting that old woman. We're celebrating tonight, and she posted a picture, and they were having a big party, and they were drinking. The night before she's about to find out if she's going to jail for hitting a woman. That's what it said, tying one on in celebration of just in case I'm going to jail. And she's partying, she's drinking, and it's like, how much empathy do you think she was really showing to the people that she hit? That's things that people. If people watch just any portion of this, I hope they listen to this. Stop putting your life on Facebook. The internet never dies. If you look at my Facebook right now, yes, you will see some pictures of my children or my child. See a picture of me, my wife. You will not find one thing that gives you an intimate detail about us other than I love my family and I promote my business. You will not see my political views. You will not see, you will see I'm a Christian just because there's some Bible verses and stuff, but I'm never going to be ashamed of that. But you're not going to see me drinking and partying and cutting up and doing all of that. You're not going to see me sharing inappropriate memes because you never know how that stuff, and I'm not saying people need to be scared, but what I'm saying is a good rule of thumb to live by is would I want 12 strangers looking at that? If the answer is no, don't post it. And the reason I say that is because I'm telling you, the information people put about themselves, I see them they'll put their emails, they'll do it, all this stuff. Well, it makes it pretty easy to research you at that point. I've got your email, I've got your birth date, so point I'm making is don't go out there and put your life story on Facebook because it will be used against you, and probably rightfully so. So I know that, again, a long way around answering your question, but that's the most realistic and prominent influence is social media. It provides, it's such an effective tool. It provides so much information, and the stupidest part is people are willing to give it.
Right.
I don't know, man. It's just, so that's free legal tip of the day.
Yeah.
Don't put your life story, or maybe somebody needs to hear this and go, oh crap, maybe I should go filter through my.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to be flipping through there tonight and being like, well,
Yeah. So again, I know I sound like an alarmist, but I'm not trying to. I do it every day. I do it every day.
No, I think informing people about how things work is very crucial.
Yeah, sure.
And another thing that popped off recently is just to not to go into any political sides or anything, but I know Donald Trump was under the pressure for a while. He got implications of talking about election fraud, and then also I guess withholding classified documents, if I'm not mistaken. So I know that was a big ordeal, but from a legal perspective, what were your thoughts on that?
I struggle with it because how is it a big enough crime that you go indict him, and then it's this huge, massive thing? And again, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. I really don't. I try to keep an open mind. But how was it? It was this massive, huge thing he did, and where he kept his documents, classified documents shouldn't have been where they were, all of those things. And he needs to be indicted and go to prison. But our current president did it, and it was swept under the rug. Right. Literally, and that's why I say is
in the Corvette or something. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Is like I literally don't care. I just believe in fairness across the board. If Joe Biden did it first, I'd be saying the same thing about Donald Trump and vice versa. What I'm saying is you can't have it both ways. It's either a really bad thing, or it's just a stupid thing. They shouldn't have done it, and we should have just not said anything.
Right.
As far as a legal standpoint, look, man, I struggle with anything I see on the news because, especially when it comes to indictments and politics, because it's become weaponized.
Yeah.
It's people, and again, people are going to say that, you're defending Trump. No, I'm not. I'm defending democracy. Since when do we indict our politicians for differing opinions? And the easy answer people are going to say is, well, when they commit crimes, we indict them. Donald Trump's okay, fine. What about all the other people that are being indicted? Take Trump. That's the easy low-hanging fruit. Take that one off. What about these other politicians that truly have done nothing? Look at local governments. Look at state governments. Look at anywhere. Then go all the way up to Trump. Why is that the answer? That we don't like what you're saying on either side, so we're going to have you indicted. And if you looked into that and you realized that it wasn't just a Trump thing, it would scare people. It's used to silence people. That's where, from a legal aspect, that's my concern. Look, it's going to sound ignorant of me, but I mean, realistically, do those confidential documents and classified documents, do they really give you any concern? No, because you don't know what's on them. And yes, you want your government to be safe and you want all of that. You want the documents to be protected. But realistically, like, what's more of a threat to me is the fact that you can be indicted because people don't like what you say. That's terrifying to me. And of course, again, you're going to hear, well, it's not Mr. Walker because they're not indicted because of what they have to say. They're indicted because of what they did. Ask the mass public, what did he do? They don't know. And that's the biggest issue. I don't care if you're pro-Trump. I don't care if you're pro-Biden. We all have our own political beliefs and system and how we develop our own opinions. What I'm asking is everybody to objectively look at the system as a whole.
Right.
So legally, that's what I'm thinking about is, why do we have such a breakdown? Like, think about it. If you come out and said right now, I'm pro-Trump, I'll challenge you to do this, Jared. Go to Channel 6 KFDM page, Beaumont, and I want you to look. They posted a poll that said, who are you voting for, Trump or Harris? I'm never going to express my views on Facebook, mainly because I'm not going to get into a pissing match with people that they have no logic. It's all opinion.
Right.
And I want you to read those comments. And I want you to look at the viciousness that they're met with. It's a personal attacks on them, their family, all because of who they express, whether it's Biden or Trump. Both ways. It goes both ways. Go look at it. I challenge you to look at that, and that's what I'm talking about. Since when is it a bad thing to have a different opinion? Sure, we can disagree, but take that disagreement and that hatred that you see there, and that's all the politics are. That's all those indictments are. It's the same thing as we're going to use it to get what we want. And that's what I'm tired of. I'm ready for us to get back to educated discussions. I'm ready for us to get back to having logic. And look, these Facebook debates, they're great. Some people find them humorous. I don't. I think it's sad because it's a perfect demonstration of where we are. And where we are is nobody takes the time to do their homework. Nobody considers and listens to what the other side has to say and truly break it down and consider it. It's, I believe this, try to change my opinion. Well, how successful are they going to be in that?
Right.
It doesn't matter what I say. I can be right. I can show you stats. I can show you statistics. If you believe that Donald Trump's supposed to be the best president ever, then that's who you're going to vote for. If you believe Kamala Harris is going to be the best president, that's who you're going to vote for. But my point is it used to be, hey, Jared, I know you said this, but let me show you some things that I think may disprove that. Okay, well, here's why I think that statistic's not valid, Layne. That's not how it is anymore. It's, oh, you're a Trumper? Let's cancel his business.
Right.
I have a hard time with that. So I know that's off your topic, but at the same time, you asked me what the legal thoughts are. That's my legal thought, is all these indictments and stuff, you'll never know what the truth is because it's part of a bigger picture, and that the bigger picture is what I have legal issues with.
Right. It's definitely a rabbit hole for sure, and there's a lot of people with a lot of anger, going after, because like I see people, I'm sure everybody that would listen to this, it also sees it, but dude, there's so much aggression. I mean, if you're pro-Trump, like, of course, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you're for Biden or I guess now Harris, it's like, of course, so there's a lot of anger and a lot of aggression thrown out there for people. And I think to your point, I think it's very important to get back to that educated discussion. That's very important to progress. Because right now I guess even for the past several elections, it's been wild.
Well, I just don't know at what point we come together and say, okay, I'm not sure that either side has it figured out, but we got to do something for the common good. I think that's my fundamental struggle with it is there's so much fighting, so much anger, and like the anger should be funneled and channeled by all of us towards the people that are causing the problems. It's not me and you.
Right.
I'm not doing anything to make inflation higher. I'm not doing anything to make your taxes go up or down. I'm not doing anything to the housing market. I'm not making the price of beef or gas go up. Like, who is? Let's look at that.
Right.
Let's put the people that are making those decisions and their pockets are getting fat and lined. Let's put them under the microscope. Like how y'all are grilling me over here on Facebook on local 12, channel 6 KFDM. Like, take that same time and energy and go, wait, yeah, I mean, it's not Jared that's doing that. Who's doing that?
Right.
It's the decision makers. And I think until we get back of truly wanting it to be better for everybody, not just, oh, it's better for me because I got a tax break, or, oh, you suck because you like Trump, or you suck because you like Harris. As long as that stupid debate is going on, those people in Washington, they're getting exactly what they want.
Kicking the feet up, yeah.
Well, I mean, dude, they're getting fat. They're making the money. They're doing all of that. While everybody has, they're kicking an anthill. Oh, here, public, watch this. None of these issues actually really matter. And meanwhile, they're making off like bandits.
Right.
I'm not saying
organized chaos is
well,
what it is.
That's well, it's a puppeteer pulling the strings. Is all it is. And you watch it, and it's just, look, I'm not saying I have it figured out because there's a lot of issues I don't pay attention to because it's foreign to me. But at the same time, the ones I do watch, I just watch everybody. It's just it's Trump, Harris, Trump, and I'm like, y'all have lost sight of the actual issues of this country.
Right.
And until we all, as a collective, decide that something's got to give, and we don't care who the president is, it's got to go back to the best interest of the people. Man, we're a lost cause.
Right. Yeah, I'm hoping that we can maybe figure that out. I guess the key is spread the word.
I mean, hey, it's going to take getting back to having a generation of folks that are willing to read, research, and do those things. And that's, pick up a book.
Right.
Not Facebook, not Instagram. Read. History repeats itself. And, I'm a big history guy. My wife makes fun of me all the time. She's going to hate me after this. She watches the podcast. She's going to say she makes fun of me, which she does. But, I'm a big history guy.
Right.
I love it. I'm a big believer that history does repeat itself. And, it's not too far of a leap from things that happen in other nations and where we are now. You hear people, oh, well, there's going to be a civil war. Well, I mean, if y'all let it, if we don't get educated and start trying to fix it instead of just saying, oh, make America great again, or Biden, Harris, or whatever, oh, I'm going to get a tax cut, or I'm going to get my student loans. Like, in its simplest form, nobody votes for the greater good anymore. Everybody votes for what's in it for me. It was, I'm going to go to school, Joe Biden's going to forgive my debt. How'd that work out? Yeah, same thing. Some of the Trump promises you hear, it's like, okay, he's going to cut taxes for everybody. It's going to be this huge thing. You're going to have a bunch of, savings. And, to some part it's true, but for the most part, did it affect you one way or the other? Now it is. Because you're getting older and all of that. But my point is, we got to look at policy. We got to look at the bigger issues, not just what am I going to get out of the deal? And I think that's where our shift has been as a society is, man, the older generations worked together. They believed in looking out for their common man. Now, everybody's out for themselves. And they're angry. Like you said, they're angry. Why? Why are you angry?
Yeah.
So
that could loop back to social media.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, no kid. Social media is the root of all
this
of it.
competition. Yeah, and I guess speaking of, this whole accusation of Twitter. When Elon Musk ended up buying Twitter. What are the legal nuances of large scale acquisitions and like how these deals are shaped? Because I know that he went in, he wanted to buy it for like 44 million, billion. I'm sorry. Then he wanted to back out because he said that they inflated or they deflated the number of fake accounts on Twitter. And I guess inflated the number of real users. But then that led to something. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with the MAE clause, the May clause. It stands for. I had to write this down because I was like, "There's no way I can remember this." It stands for Materials Adverse Effect. It's the Materials Adverse Effect clause. I'm not too sure the details behind it, but I know that it's used in corporate contracts to back out of deals and things.
That's
like
what
that.
I was going to say. Is it's probably some kind of a reservation deal. But what I would say is, first off, I have not had the benefit or the luxury of being a part of a $44 billion.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened yet. Maybe tomorrow Elon Musk will call me and let me negotiate one of those deals for him.
Right.
But until that happens, I can just tell you, I've been a part of some high-end transaction, nothing close to that. I mean, that's a different deal. But man, you talk about nuances. It is so much email back and forth. It's not sexy. It's not like you see. It's lawyers are working out. We want this term. No, we want this because it has this effect on us. That May clause you were talking about, I'm sure it's some way for them to get out of it, more or less. Do I know what that stands for exactly? No. But do I understand that would be a massive undertaking to make that deal happen? Yes. And, again, I don't think the lawyers necessarily got the credit on that because, Elon's writing the check for it. But, man, negotiating a deal like that, I can't even imagine the army of lawyers involved in that. Because it's just, when you're purchasing that kind of deal, and it's really in any transaction, whether it's real estate, commercial, or consumer, any kind of transaction, a good contract is one where they sat down and tried to think everything out.
Right.
I can't even imagine. It's hard enough for a piece of property, much less something that has that far of a reach and affects that many people. I would want no part of it. I mean, unless Elon's like, hey, here's $1 billion. Right. I couldn't imagine being a part of that.
Right. Yeah. I could. I mean, like, I have no idea,
Right.
but I could imagine it is intense, and like I said, just going back to medicine, I've seen, just kind of like equivalent to big cases for lawyers. I've seen big cases with, teams of 20 doctors on it, trying to working endlessly for,
Sure.
Day in and day out. But yeah, it's wild that that can even be managed. You know?
It's just, at the end of the day, that's probably one of the more complex transactions there is as far as social media is concerned, because you're talking about such a massive platform, and you don't. I don't know another situation where somebody bought one like that.
Right.
It was just like, up and decided one day I'm going to buy a social media platform.
Right.
It takes a special person.
$44 billion.
It takes a special person,
God.
and so orchestrating that. I mean, it's not like they had this form that they could just copy and paste. Some of it is,
Right.
But
Go to the gas station. Swipe your card.
That's right. And you've got to an army had to sit down and think, and Elon Musk, of what they wanted, what they were afraid of, how they can get the other side to agree to it, and the other side's doing the exact same thing. So I mean, it's a lot of negotiation, but at the end of the day, the manpower, I can't even fathom that.
Right. Whew. Well, I do have a couple more things before we close this thing off. We were talking earlier that you had taken cases of I guess where mothers have kind of enforced their choice and things like that. I don't really know how to explain that. It's such
As far as abortion goes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough topic. But what do you think about the long-term, like, legal and societal impacts of these cases on reproductive rights?
It is tough, and it's a sensitive topic. Let me start with this, so there's just no misunderstanding or misinterpretation of what I'm about to say. You and I are men, right? And I understand 2024 men and all that. I'm not a woman. I don't have a woman's reproductive system. I don't have the ability to carry a child. Therefore, my input really shouldn't matter. That being said, I have Christian views. I have conservative views when it comes to that. So my opinion does differ. However, going back to why it's such a great setup question you asked me earlier is, I like to think, because of my profession, I have to do it all the time, I can separate those views from necessarily what's right. Do I necessarily agree with it? No. Do I think that it's their body and they have a constitutional right to do whatever they want with it? Within a reason, yes. Flip side of that is, what about the 9th month? That's where I struggle. So again, first and foremost, it's not my decision to make because it's not my body. I've not designed to make that, because I don't think I could make it through childbirth after seeing all that. You know, those are my hats off to these women. And look, if they don't want a child, I do think it is their right. Where I struggle with that is does that align with my beliefs? No, it doesn't. So, but I think that's where we lose sight of it is, you know, the Constitution and your rights weren't necessarily founded on people's religious beliefs. It is incorporated, and I think that there's a lot of things that were built off of that. And it was used as a guide, yes. But again, it's their constitutional right to not have my morals or religious beliefs. So that's why I think we have such a huge debate on that. As far as the law and stuff moving forward, I don't know, man. That's why it's such a hot topic, because nobody's come up with the right solution yet. Should it be in the power of the states for the state to vote and decide? It would seem to me that, if the people of a state decide, it's the majority. That's how the state should rule. But at the same time, what about the dissent? What about the people that have a constitutional right to protect their body and do the things they need to do, but they can't because the majority won in that state? I don't know what the answer is. I know that it's going to be a fight that I don't see ending anytime soon.
Right.
Because people aren't honest. I think people want to say, it's just wrong. It is. It is to your standards. And again, I'm more conservative on that than most people. But I still hear the argument for the other side. It's their right. And again, I'm not saying that I don't appreciate the it's my body, it's my choice argument in my face, rubbing it in my face. Because I don't think that gets people that are more conservative over to your side. I think having a discussion of, how can you as a male, biological male, not capable of reproducing, or childbirth, I should say, how could you tell me what I need to do in that decision? Whenever not only is it not even possible for you, how can you even fathom that?
Right.
So I struggle on that aspect, but as far as everything else, and I'll just say I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that anybody does, and people that pretend that they do, I think they're lying or they haven't given it enough thought, because we are where we are on that issue because nobody has the right answer. And I'm not knocking that, because I don't have the right answer. But, I don't think the answer is coming out right and telling them they can't do it. I don't think that the answer legally and constitutionally is telling, people that have different beliefs and systems that they're wrong and that they're evil for having a counter to it. I don't think that that's the answer. I think it's going to take years and years of people finally cooling down and going, okay, taking the feud out of it, what do we do?
Right.
Because I'm not saying people that go get an abortion in the 9th month are horrible and they're going to hell and all these things. Is it something that I would do? Probably not. Is it something that I would ask my wife to do? Probably not. But that doesn't mean I'm judging these other people. And everybody thinks that that's, if you oppose it, you're judging them. And I'm not. I just think that, child's a blessing and all that. And I'm not saying that those people don't say that the child is a blessing. I just think that we see it differently, but people automatically assume that you believe it because you're judging or casting a stone on them. And that's not my position on it at all.
Right. Are you familiar with the Dobbs versus the Jackson's Women's Health Organization?
I want to say I am.
I'm not exactly, but I know that this was a 2022 case that overall affected healthcare and privacy and women's rights.
Yeah,
and
I was
things
going to say,
like
isn't that kind of the White Horse case on it?
Yeah, and so I'm not familiar with. I was going to see if you were educated on it.
Man, not enough to regurgitate the facts and stuff. I just know that that's the new White Horse case that's kind of tying Roe v. Wade and everything in. So other than that, no. Just because, again, I don't practice that area a lot. I don't do a whole lot of civil rights stuff.
Sure.
But I am knowledgeable enough to know that it's the reason everybody's looking at this topic so closely now, because the ultimate question is, where does the power lie? Should the federal government be able to say that you have the right to have an abortion, or should they be allowed to kick it down to the states and the states say, you vote, people of the state, you vote, you decide? That's kind of the question.
Right.
So, what do you think about that?
Oof. Oof.
Exactly. When people ask you that question, there's a natural oof. What are they going to think of me?
Yeah, right.
I don't care about it anymore because my point is I don't have the same opinions that other people do. I have done research. I've tried to differ mine. But when I ask you that, did you feel it? And that's why I ask it. Is because I
felt it. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was like, oh shit.
It's the old crap moment of like, oh, what do I say? I don't want to offend anybody.
Right.
But that's the point I'm making. Until we can get past where just because I'm not judging you because I have a different opinion. But until we can get past that, oh crap, I'm gonna offend somebody, we can't have an intelligent conversation. If I'm so worried about how well do you think I can listen and hear you if I'm worried about the next thing I say offending you?
Right.
And I'm not saying that means that people don't get to be everything you say doesn't have offense. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is let's work together, have a candid conversation where we can be honest and I can ask questions without fear of being judged. Just like you want to be able to make statements that you want to have those rights without fear of being judged. I want to learn without fear of being judged.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I say is, what's your stance on it, Jared?
Yeah. Well, what about no?
Anyways,
no. I think I think I've always been. I think that with your initial point that we're men, women should be able to make their own decisions, and so I've never been one to to sit here and think, oh, like I'm gonna make a decision. I'm gonna, if I had a magic wand, I would do this. I think everybody has a right to their own story. And especially depending on the circumstance. Because I mean, there's worst case scenario. Somebody gets raped. And they end up having becoming pregnant. Should
the major exceptions, rape, incest, life of the mother. That's the hard ones.
Right.
I don't know, man. Again, I preface everything I say with the fact that I recognize I'm not the one that needs to make that decision. I recognize that I'm incapable of making that decision. I wouldn't ask my wife to consider my opinion on that. We have the same religious, moral views. And again, I don't think it's necessarily a religious or moral. It is to some extent, right? I mean, I think that definitely comes into play. But at the end of the day, like, if I can't make the decision for the woman that I'm with every day and know better than anybody on the planet, how can I make that decision for a total stranger?
Right.
I can't. And so again, this conversation is going to go on for eternity because there's not a good answer for it. There's not it's not a one-size-fits-all problem, no matter how bad we try to make it. And I think at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that you're not a Christian if you support abortion. I don't think. I think there's some differences that are going to have to be answered for. But I also don't think that it means that you're going to hell if you have an abortion or do those things, because there's complications. I mean, there's certain. It's not cut and dry. It's just like the three major. I'm not okay with abortion except for these two things. Okay. I don't know that you get it both ways. So that's what I'm saying is, yes, it's a very, very, very hot button issue. I usually don't engage in those conversations,
right?
Because I realize my opinion doesn't matter. I leave that to the people that have to bear children.
Sure,
I leave that
absolutely.
to the people that are. I wouldn't make it. I'm not tough enough to make it through childbirth, and I'm not tough enough to make that decision. That's for them.
Right.
And so, everything else is just my point is I think we need to be open-minded to have discussions that can yield fruit towards a resolution of this, not conversations where everybody's so afraid to step on their toes for cancel culture. They're going to be mistaken or, misinterpreted. We've got to be able to have genuine, it goes for all issues. We've got to be able to have genuine conversation in which we talk about real issues without fear of being offended.
Right.
Until we can do that, man, I don't know that we're going to get a resolution to it.
What about qualified immunity? What's your opinion on that? I know the critics are saying that it makes it difficult for people to hold people accountable, and then the supporters are saying that it allows police to do their job properly. So,
man, I'm a plaintiff's lawyer. I don't like qualified immunity. Look, there's times that public policy and things like, for example, you take a different route. Police one's the tough one, right?
Right.
or it might be the easy in your opinion. It just depends. But like, for example, your roads that are built. If you could go off and sue every engineer and every construction company that built the roads, how many people do you think would sign up to build the roads in the state of Texas? They wouldn't. So for a matter of policy and procedure or protocol, there's got to be some protection, right? I mean, we need roadways, we need infrastructure, we need all those. But if you're getting sued every time there's something that's wrong with it, you'll go dead broke, can't make a dollar. So there is some reason and I recognize there's some need and it necessitates that protection. I get that. Now, where does it stop? I don't know. I mean, do you think? I think that if I was married to a police officer and she was involved in a shooting at work and she was sued individually and it was a justified shooting and all that, wouldn't you want immunity? Again, we're framing everything not based on what we talked about earlier. We're not framing these discussions based on the world's full of good people and people make bad decisions. We are assuming when we have these conversations that everybody's bad. Think about it. I mean, because would you have a problem with qualified immunity if you believed everybody's intentions were good? No, because why would you need to? I mean, why? And I realize you've got to have that healthy skepticism. Even so, are we really going to frame and ask police officers who don't respectfully make a ton of money, whose lives on the line every day, especially nowadays? I don't care where you fall on that. That's a dangerous job right now. Are we really going to ask them to show up and do their job that's already not super fruitful financially? There's risk for their children and their families. To now do it without any protection under the law whatsoever? How's that going to work? How are you going to get police officers? There's going to be a mass shortage, and it's almost like that's what people want. So when it comes to certain aspects of the law, I'm not a fan of qualified immunity, but I recognize, and I use the road example because don't we need law and order? Don't we need police officers that are going to show up every day? What if they know even if I'm accused of a wrongful shooting, if I'm accused of excessive force, and they sue my pants off, then what? Why would I go be a cop? Then what? Right. So that's why I say that. Look, I wish I could give you better answers for this. I'm not a fan of qualified immunity on BS stuff when people get hurt and they knew about it and they say, oh, well, it doesn't matter because we had immunity. I think that's chicken. But at the same time, I recognize the need for it to better serve and protect our communities and people. I mean, that's all there is to it. Right. So, I don't know. May not be the popular opinion. I don't think that, most people don't have to wake up and go to work and worry about getting sued. So it's too foreign to them. Right. But if you've ever been sued or you're part of lawsuits or if you had to face that threat every day, I promise you they'd be singing a different tune. If you knew every day you went to work that there's the potential that everything that you worked hard for and strive towards could be wiped out by some lawyer, I promise you probably would switch jobs because it eats on you. So that's a tough one, man.
Right. Yeah. It'd be like playing with fire.
Yeah. I mean, it's a game. Eventually, something's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, given the odds and given the climate that our media is pushing and the problems that you don't hear about cops doing a good job. They don't play that. But what's on loop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 months is a cop that may or may not have shot somebody. And look, I recognize, again, there's bad people in every profession. I understand that it does happen. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But it goes, I was having this conversation with a friend of my wife's the other day. Are we really going to oppress the liberties of the majority because of the actions of a few? I mean, it's what I'm talking about with the ARs and all of this hot topic stuff. At the end of the day, do we have to have a rule because of the minority to suppress and oppress the civil liberties of the majority? I struggle with that. And again, that's a conversation for another day, but in essence, we're making these rules for the bad apples that punish everybody else. At what point do we wake up and go, man, that's rather than it be the rule, that needs to be the exception? I don't know. It's tough.
It is tough. It definitely is tough. Yeah, you have a tough job. You have to be aware of everything and have everything in a certain light, but also keeping facts as facts. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the hardest, but also most impressive things that you're doing. Because being a partner here at the firm and being involved, you kind of have to be exactly like, like you're explaining, because it's
not always black and white. I live in
Right.
look, there's certain aspects of my life that are black and white. Ethics, is it the right, wrong thing? Black, white.
right.
But these are gray. There's gray here. Like I can't look at you and say that qualified immunity is a good thing. I can't look at you and say that in all cases, it's there's not positives. And anybody that does, man, they either don't know enough about the topic, or they have a motive for why, or it's already affected them, and yes, they're lobbying to change it, and I applaud that. But like, we've got to be realistic about this stuff and realize like there's more to it than just, is qualified immunity a good thing? Well, I mean, it depends on who you ask.
Right.
And that's part of my job is to look at it and say, there's a lot of moving parts to it. And, and again, people are going to watch this podcast and go, did he really answer anything? Did I? I'm going to ask your question with a question. I mean, I answer your question with a question did I? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, 100%. Here's the thing, here's what you did that I really like is, you're expanding on an idea and allowing a neutral vision, and I think that just shows that you're good at what you do, because, a lot of people would say, oh, this, give a direct answer and it would be one-sided. But what you've done is you've kind of set both sides on, laid out
Sure.
both sides for people and given them a little bit more information for them to think on for themselves, and even myself, a couple of things you were saying, I'm sitting here going, huh, yeah, you're right. So.
Well, look, at the end of the day, man, I normally I get told I'm blunt, but I'm very straightforward. If you ask me a question, I'll give you an answer.
Right.
On these topics, I realize that if I was on Fox News or CNN, that these aren't wonderful answers because they want to direct it. Yes, my God, it's because I'm a red-blooded American and that's my opinion. But that's not a realistic, that's not a substantive answer. And what I mean by that is, those aren't questions you can answer in a soundbite.
Right.
My question is, and I understand one of my answers sounds like I'm posing you a question because I kind of am.
Right.
Is you can answer that question up and you can't answer it for all. And that's my point is on all of these issues is I can't fill in the necessary blanks for everybody and it be true. I can't say if you ask me is qualified immunity a good thing, there's so many blanks you have to fill in to reach a solid answer that you assume too much. And that's the biggest problem. We assume. We assume. We're not going to go do the legwork. So that's why I say I kind of pose it in a question where people can go, well, that SOB, he may be right. Roads are a good thing. Do we want people to continue to build roads? Because I promise you, if they can get sued, because it happens every day, people sue companies for potholes and qualified immunity saves them. Do you want those protections? I would. I mean, how else are we going to drive? And so, but you don't get it both ways. It can't be, well, that's not that big of a deal. It doesn't affect me. Well, what if it was your loved one that was killed by that pothole? That's what I'm saying is we've got to get back to deep thought, not philosophizing,
Right.
but we've got to get back to thinking about these issues. We've got to get back to
Understand
thinking
the full spectrum.
That's right. And going back to like I was saying with voting, the thought process has to be bigger than how does this directly affect me? What is the overall good here? What's the overall negative? That's how we've got to start thinking. It's not, well, that's affected me directly, so I don't like it, or that's benefiting me directly. I'm going to keep that. When we can't do that. You can't. You're not gonna keep the thumb to at the sake of the whole horn. You know what I'm saying? And what
Right.
I mean by that is that's where we are. So many people, well, it benefits me. They're the thumb, but it's killing the whole arm. Look what it's doing. So, and I know that's a stupid visual. I'm a visual guy, but the point's made, is it not? Right. So anyway, it's just, I can go on for days about this stuff because I'm passionate about it.
Right.
And I normally don't voice my political opinions or anything like that, and I'm reserved. So, but when I'm asked about it, I do want people to start thinking critically again. If they don't get anything else aside from we've talked about professions and all that, folks, go back to thinking critically. That's all I can say.
Right.
So.
Well, sir, we're pushing on 2 hours now, so we might as well go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. But first off, I'd like to say, man, I really appreciate you again for letting me come sit up at your office and things like that. And you are doing some impressive work, you know, and so I think that you know, your family's definitely lucky to have you as a part of it. So,
well, man, I appreciate it. And let me say this is, you know, it's always the host has to thank the people that came on. The effort you make coming all the way over here, setting up, I respect it. I appreciate it. And more importantly, what I appreciate is you taking the time to help spread awareness on certain issues, whether it's talking to a lawyer, whether it's talking to a doctor or whoever. Man, it's these conversations that are going to eventually make people realize and go, man, he kind of thinks like I do.
right.
You know, maybe I should talk to them. That's what it takes. So I think people that watch this need to know the effort that goes in by you. It's not just as simple as plugging in. Because again, I'm ignorant to podcasts, the production of them, watching what you did. People need to recognize the time, the energy, and the talent it takes to do this. I'm looking at what you've got here. So look, that goes both ways. I'm here to talk about myself. I don't like doing that. Even though I've gone on about 2 hours, I get paid to talk. My point is, man, is that somebody needs to take the time and put the camera on you and say, applaud you for what you're doing because you've done very well. You've gotten a lot of traction and you obviously put a lot of work into it. So my hat's off to you.
Well, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm working on becoming the best host I could be. And, you know, it's going to take some time. You know, when I first started, you know, when I got the idea that I was going to start a podcast, I soon realized that it was a lot easier said than done, you know, and you know, each conversation gets easier, but I'm still not to the point where I feel confident on hurting a conversation, like in a way that is effective, you know, and so. You know, I'm sure by the next time we do this, I'll be, you know, just a little bit better. But
practice, man, honing your craft.
Right.
Honing your craft.
So yeah, we're chipping away at it. But man, I really appreciate the kind words and again, man, I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, I appreciate you, man.